pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lauren, would you do roll call?
Sure. Rich,
Here.
Julie,
Here.
Juanita,
Here.
Kate,
Here.
Louisa,
Yes.
Gladys,
Here.
Lauren here, Dr. Cronin, absent, Teresa,
Present.
Michelle is not.
Here. Here. Here.
Perfect.
Thank you, Lauren.
You're welcome.
At this point, I'm gonna
Wait a
turn,
minute, Al.
Ah, hi Al.
How could we forget that?
Camouflage.
at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to, our superintendent.
Thank you. Ken, can you just cue me up? I may have to move around a little bit. That's very
It
good.
should reach no matter where it goes. Which one would you like?
The organization.
The first one. Yep.
Thanks. Okay, so the organizational chart, and I've shared this previously I think during the summer was the first time I may have shared it, and we didn't quite get a chance to dig into it. So I wanted to make sure that we had enough time to really answer questions and have some clarification about some of the restructure. So as you know, as a result of some of the, particularly, most importantly, the not backfilling my role, we redistributed some functions. We're down now. This really doesn't show up that wonderfully on here, but I'll have you trust the chart in front of you as I look at this chart here. That we are down a couple of positions, and so even since June, we've had to do some further kind of reshifting, and so as you know, we lost our director of academy partnerships. That position is vacant. Then you have my position. Thank you so much, Ken. Is also vacant. So we redistributed a good number of those responsibilities. And I did want to point out, I don't think it shows well on here, that this is not a position that exists. This was a position that I'd like to talk about at some point in the future, as well as at the TBD under the human resource legal side as well. And with the understanding that we are quite budget challenged, and it doesn't mean that we're requesting that for next year, but that it's an opener for maybe talking about how we need to, have enough staffing to be our most efficient self here in central office. So I did also provide an update during the summer, trying to really just talk you through some of the biggest shifts. So I'll talk about the two chief positions, because those sort of changed the most, along with Dr. Seelig's position really changed quite a bit, and how we have to move forward with that. So we had a K-5 chief of school, and we had a K-8 chief of school, and each were also tasked, so they were supervising principals across the district. Last year and in previous years, I had supervised the high school, Kelly supervised ACE program and Reach and Endeavor, and Dr. Rocco supervised the adult ed program. So, and also Mr. Roche and Dr. Rocco kind of equally co-shared a lot of responsibilities around committees and professional development, especially when it came to the principals and what was happening in the buildings. And so they each sort of shared those responsibilities. For, kind of coming out of heading into this year, it was super critical for me. And there was some, as you know, a little bit of confusion for folks around the K-5, K-8 at times. And I think it lent itself to a little bit of, is this a duplication? Not so much internally, we kind of had that straightened out, but certainly externally. But one of our biggest focus, and I think you kind of heard me start to talk about, is the need for driving that student achievement component and having a very clear line of communication with principal supervision, so that people are receiving similar messages, and that as we kind of from top to bottom, that we have sort of a control point in some of that messages. Running concurrent with that is the need to backfill my point. So I ran sort of in between sort of what was going on with the schools, but also the curriculum and learning and development, assessment, you name it, large professional development projects, and everything else that comes with being an assistant superintendent. And so what we did was we crafted a K-12 chief of schools and performance. So this position, this person will drive the performance. So those are your school improvement plans, really digging in. Those are really helping folks to analyze assessment data, finding out where the blind spots are in the building, making sure that all of the wheels and the gears are moving in the right direction, and creating a cycle of improvement around that. And then as this person is doing this work and we're adjusting curriculum, we're now looking at assessments, we're looking to see how do we make tweaks to what we're providing as a district to support the work in the schools. And so there's a lot of curriculum development, assessment development, and support into the buildings to work with grade level teams and PLCs and so on and so forth. But once Mr. Roche steps into a school and is working with principal and develops a cycle and a game plan, Dr. Rocco will be coming in to do coaching and to continue to work with that. So they will work collaboratively together so that we're kind of separating out the supervision and the coaching. So you can have the evaluation and supervision and the school improvement piece, but there are going to be some things that you might need to work in. Dr. Rocco's going to help with some of the executive coaching around that, but also the professional learning, which is a huge bucket of her responsibility. So professional learning is everything from team, best training, onboarding our teachers. She will be doing, she leads our PDEC effort. So that's the new teacher evaluation, new administrator evaluation, new evaluation across the system. So that's a really huge initiative right now. And that is a committee driven. Anna leads that committee. There is a slew of other things. We have our teacher residents that we're working with some of our university partners, professional learning, so coordinating the professional learning. So you probably have a spreadsheet 8 gazillion pages long of all the things that are happening in the district, and so that as a coordinator of those efforts and in line with our, particularly in line with the goals that we've set out, Anna will run point on all of that work. She's also supervises adult education as well. And so we really split those roles out, created very specific focus, and then I meet with both of them, and they meet with the team as well. So there's plenty of work for everybody, but this was a way of streamlining that work and having sort of a point of conversation across the board in terms of accountability and expectation, and that everybody's kind of pitching in on that. So those are kind of how the chiefs, the academic chiefs were realigned. Under Mike, probably going through some of the most significant changes in terms of, we lost the director of academic partnership. We tried to reevaluate over the summer as to how to best move that forward, given the budget challenges that we were also experiencing and the lift. And so Mike agreed to take on, thank you, the academy stuff. He was always very interested in it anyways and was very supportive. But we immediately started getting contacted from a lot of our partners that we had started to develop relationships with. And as we built quite a few already, folks were reaching out. And so already Mike's off and running. We've got some great stuff scheduled with Boehringer, field trips coming up, STEM days going on. So we're going to continue to do that. Mike was doing sites and facilities and operations and technology last year. The goal was to slide that under finance where it used to be, the finance department. It's very difficult to do that right now, given what's what we're facing and what's going on. So Mike has agreed to continue to do that until there's a good point in time to do a handoff and things are a little bit less chaotic in that arena. So there's a ton of legislative stuff. There's a ton of advocacy work that needs to happen. I think that there are over 200 legislative changes for school districts that were just passed in the last round, and so Mike will be helping us to sort through those things, and get a handle on those. He also liaises with our city partners as well. And a lot of state things that are coming down at the state level, enrollment, I'm trying to think of all the things that we just put under your
Security.
oh my God, security, yeah, emergency management, which is a huge component. And as we had a budget reduction in the security coordinator position, a lot of that work is flowing directly right to Mike in terms of cameras, safety advocates, and the school emergency plans and response. So that's kind of how that was organized out there. And under, I'm trying to think, what were the other key ones? We're still going to continue to talk about sort of this lane here and the special ed. I kind of put some notes to the group to look at. But in terms of sort of moving some things around in this department, between some of the roles, but with the goal also of bringing in at some point a K-12 guidance and pupil service staff member to help support and get and coordinate the services, especially with the academy model coming on. There's a tremendous need for that guidance piece and that support. And in the last couple of years, we really struggled to get those guidance numbers up and running. And now that we have a decent amount, and thanks to the Kelly's recruitment, guidance counselors are very hard to find and to maintain, to be able to help and assist with the coordination of those services and to make that would be a K-12 position. But again, budget aside, that is something that we would love to see in the future. I need more of Kelly's time, so we're still talking about how to reorganize some of her work so that I have more Kelly at my disposal to help me with some of the strategic plans. Kelly's a phenomenal asset in our district, and we're trying to find a way to work on the program stuff at the same time support all of the work. So there's right now the role hasn't shifted as much, but certainly shifted significantly over the last couple of years. And then under the human resources side, it was last spring now that we talked about the need to kind of discuss some of the roles and how those would interact with one another, and whether we would separate some duties to create a different line of clarity and communication around HR and legal. A lot of some of that has been a function of lack of having enough folks. So you've got Kim is a unicorn when it comes to the legal services, being an attorney and handling all of the HR things that happen in that department. And so we're looking to create a different streamline to be able to not only handle the workflow that goes in there, but also to sort of separate some of those things out. Now, when you guys received this chart, I had the TBD in there, and Kim and I had since talked about, what does it look like, right? And she says, well, this doesn't really totally reflect some stuff, and we ended up moving a line or two. I'm going to just pop that one up if you're okay. I didn't want to start with that one and confuse anybody that I made any changes, but I would like to pop up a second version, just briefly, so that you can see it more accurately reflects the current department as it stands now.
Next one down.
It's that, right, the backup one? No, I lied. Underneath that? Edit suggested, yeah, right there, please. That's not good. Access denied. Okay,
You would have
all
to
that chart, I will send it to them. All that chart has is there's a relationship between with benefits, so there's a dotted line to finance, because finance and benefits work together, but they also work in the human resource department, and it more accurately reflects that there's an HR director, which is Kim, and that there are HR generalists, which there are 3. So we'll be, inviting some future discussion on that as well, because we did talk about that at the board level, to talk about ways to support adding a structure in that achieves the goals of the board. Okay. As you can see in the goal chart here, so those are some of the major positions changes. You can see that I have technology and data now reporting to me, teaching and learning, human resources. So we have a broad scope across the top that feeds up. The 2 chief positions are now, they report directly to me. In the future, depending on how those positions change in the future, they would report to an assistant superintendent, and that person would oversee those two lanes, which is school and curriculum. Trying to think if there's anything else on here I left off. In terms of major changes. No, that's a lot. Any questions?
Did you say that TBD has a dotted line to finance?
So I'm really,
No, I'm sorry to make you go.
it should be, no.
Oh,
It's the benefits coordinator. It's the benefits coordinator that has a dotted line to finance because those two work closely together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Kara,
Yes.
and the sites is now under the finance.
Correct. So that's the ultimate goal, is to return sites there. But because we're in transition, we're onboarding still, and we're quite frankly backlogged still from the summer with keeping up with the audit. Mike is still going to continue to support that, and we're leaving Mike, no pun intended, into that mix too slowly. There's a lot of projects where we have a tremendous amount of projects that are ongoing and have been ongoing, big projects. And so
Historically, it was that way to begin with.
it was quite a while, yes, yeah. And we will need to, we don't have any additional positions up there under finance, but it was clear this summer and even now that that's another department that needs help. Kim, we added some, temporary staff to help, that it's going to be hard to see them go when the audit's over, because that was a department that was really struggling. So we were able to add a little bit of temp support, but situationally, the human resources department is the other department that has been struggling a little bit with. Sorry, Kim, to say that. Not that you guys are doing a great job, but the volume, particularly this year, has been incredible. So, managing all of that has been a bit. Our benefits coordinator, how much money does she manage?
Multiple millions of dollars, and about 2,000 insureds for all health and welfare. So health insurance, but life insurance, long-term disability, she manages all of those alone.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of assistance, if you will, kind of backup. And so one of the things that we've experienced is that when someone leaves, there's no, what's the word, succession, kind of built in, an understudy, an assistant, clerk, if you will, in those departments. It makes it a little bit harder to replace. It makes it challenging, and even at vacation time, it gets sticky. Yes.
Teresa,
Oh, sorry.
do we ever do an exit survey?
Yes, we do exit surveys. Yes.
One of the
Mrs. Janelle.
Kara,
Yes.
would it be, I'm not looking for you to do more work, but would it be worthwhile to have sort of an addendum to this chart, setting forth your thoughts, such as a conversation regarding the finance, okay, that historically sites was there, and because of the feeling was it was too much for finance to handle, we went here, but we're moving it back. Maybe not that much detail, but the stress it puts on that department, but that in the future, we're lucky to explode that. The same thing perhaps with other departments that are overburdened, that should be noted that they're overburdened, and funding being available, we're looking to expand these particular.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. It's kind of embedded a little bit in the goals, which we'll get to maybe in the second half, where I mentioned that I'd like to continue to analyze those pieces and to make some suggestions around the staffing, particularly in finance. But finance and HR have to work very closely together, and so when you evaluate one, you're really looking at both to see how can we get this data to flow, together in a way, who's doing that, and, do we have enough people helping with that work? Because it's, we've grown substantially, over the last, couple of years. And you can make the same argument in the technology and data, we're one-to-one now. Pre-pandemic, we had a handful of carts in each building, and we pretty much have the same staff that we had pre-pandemic, managing all of the responsibilities around the maintenance of that, upgrade software, placement, you name it, distribution.
Your comments, I thought maybe, asterisks or footnotes in the points you're making now, so to add it to the supplemental sheet, so, rather than, but in addition to having to read through all the goals and stuff, at least when you're looking at this schedule, you can flip through sort of a summary behind it and get your thoughts and what your projection is as to how to
Yes.
flip through it.
I agree. I did include sort of kind of the vision of the positions in the packet so that there is some description there, but it can never encompass all the things that happen during a school day, during the week, and across the school year, so. Yeah.
Kate. Kate.
Dr. Whitaker, one of the things that happened today is we got those manuals from Ed about how we're managing school activity accounts.
Yes.
Is there any thought about creating documentation internally for these different positions and responsibilities? I understand that's another level of work, so I don't know what the timeline would look like. Right.
Yeah, thank you for that. We started having those conversations, and that is the goal of some of the departments, is to start to categorize that work. And because of this issue of, with the turnover, especially making sure that we have documentation and manuals, we did just start an internal sheet for the school principals on what opening the school year, closing the school year, all the things that just happen, but we take for granted when you onboard a new person that comes in, and there's not enough, it's difficult to support everybody in the first couple days of school. At least everybody has a manual on what should happen. So we're continuing to build that. We did just share that, I think maybe a few weeks ago with the school leaders, and we're going to continue to add to those things. How many drills are you supposed to be doing? So a lot of the safety procedures, Mike loaded all of those in there. Anything, what's supposed to be in the CUME folder, what records you're supposed to save, all those things that folks are responsible for that aren't always, they're just kind of known internally, institutionally, but not necessarily written down for other people to grab onto. So we're working on that now. We've started that work, but it's going to be a while to get all of it in place. But that's a goal, and that's a systems thing, which is what I like to. Thank you. Yeah.
Michelle, did you have a question?
Yes, there was some discussion last year, I'm going to say, regarding the nonprofits, transparency, grants, and the importance of that. How are you handling that in this organizational chart? And can you elaborate on the changes you've seen and you're looking to make there?
Michelle, can you just repeat that? What? Sorry, I'm walking over to hear you more clearly.
I said last year there was a lot of discussion regarding the grants, the nonprofits, and the transparency of that, of how that works, and what changes that you implemented to make that more clear, and to lift it and to show where is that in this organizational chart.
Sure. So that's not necessarily in the chart per se, as it is my responsibility to make sure that happens. So it wouldn't necessarily be reflected in the chart, but certainly one of the things that, similar to what we did with Mike and in the finance department, and the need to kind of have some training and to have some protocol and procedures put into place and have those documented. The same thing is happening with the grants. So I do have a document that has been started, and we're also working, we've had we've had some folks that are going to be reviewing our information and giving us their best practice feedback on what things should look like, and so we'll use that information and what we learned from that to further refine procedures on how we proceed with grants. So we've already had great communications with the folks who touch the grants on the expectations, but we'll have a more formal document ready after we amalgamate some of the information that we learned, and then we'll have a documentation of how things are supposed to run.
So currently, like you just mentioned, you've got Mike in the cabinet. What cabinet member right now is is overseeing that process other than yourself? Just yourself, or I know Ann Mead is in the cabinet, is she
So
still
every grant,
running that? Can you please clarify?
sure. So every grant, comes through, the majority of grants come through, almost 99% come through, need a superintendent final signature on those. And so when those come through my desk, it's my duty to go through the grant as they're written and to look at those and review those and to make sure that they're, create assurances that they're in line with the grant purposes. And then they go off to the state Kelly has a ton of grants that she does, and she, when she finalizes those come to me, and Mead has many grants as well, and she finalizes those. And we have planning discussions on most of the grants flip year to year, where the staff is the same, the program is the same. New grants obviously are more scrutinized than just a continual grant that happens from year to year. Those come through the superintendent's office, they go to the state, and then the state reviews every single grant, and has to do a CESE approval and then a fiscal approval as well. But, I'm certainly happy to answer more of those questions.
Yeah, I know a lot of that, what you're saying, but what I'm saying is specifically regarding what we've discussed in the past, with the conflict of interest and making sure that is looked upon, not so much as going to the state, but as much as in-house. And that's what I'm looking to see in this organizational chart. I thought you had mentioned that if you thought a few weeks out, we would have more information. Is that
Right, and that was an update I provided to you yesterday. So when we'll get to a few weeks out, we'll apprise the board of those results.
Okay, so it's just not yet made the organizational chart, but it's in the
That-
process of being discussed and working on.
Correct, that review is still being had, but there's no indication right now that there's any significant issue according to a recent check-in. So, but again, I want to make sure that I can answer some more questions, through Gladys. I'd be happy to do that to make sure that we get to everything else that's on the
Okay,
agenda
because
today.
I know that when we had met last year and we had all the conditions about how we were moving forward, that this was going to be incorporated as part of the superintendent's evaluation. So I wasn't going to be going through Gladys, I used to be going through to you as a group and at this kind of a setting. Is that, am I misunderstanding that?
I don't think I'm clear.
I thought these were the sessions that we were discussing these things.
Well, for the superintendent evaluation discussion?
Isn't this part of that conversation as we're talking about organizational charts and this was part of,
Yep, and I have addressed it, yes, and I have addressed that request, and I will be able to produce for you in a few weeks the results of that.
I thought you had just said as a late check-in, there was no issue. And I just
That's correct. That, yes, and I can elaborate on that when we do an update, perhaps.
Very good. I'm very interested in that. Thank you.
Any other questions? I just have, as we talk about grants, and I think I had mentioned it several times at board meeting, and again, I'm not no financial person, and I think it was enlightened me, how they do it, I don't know. And I know grants come in, most of them expire within a year. All the grants that come into the school system, do they come in at a certain time? And do you list them all so that we as a board can know that we have 800 grants for Delamere Public Schools and where they're going and who
Yes.
found them?
So the grants do come in all the time, at different points in the year, different cycles. Some, most of them though open up, in the summer or the late summer for the beginning of the school year. So all your title grants, your alliance grants, so some of your bigger grants will open at the beginning of the school year. And then we work to populate those and make those adjustments. Grants can have 1-year expiration. Grants can have they could be on a 2-year cycle. We have a lot of grants that are on a 2-year cycle. We have grants that end in June with the fiscal year. We have grants that end in December 30th. And so it makes it a little challenging to keep track of them all, but it ranges, and yes, we do have a list, and that usually gets reported out through finance.
Okay, thank you for follow-up.
Following up on our chair's question, I think it also came up last year when we talked about grants. Do all of the grants come through our central administration?
No, not, well,
Well, what I mean is,
they come through the,
applied for,
Yeah,
managed,
they should.
recorded,
they should.
etc.
Occasionally, there's you'll see like these Mary Fitch grants and things like that will circulate that are designated directly for teachers. Sometimes the city has put out a couple of grant-like applications. And so in those instances, teachers can apply directly. We've had some conflict with some of that in the past, and we've tried to communicate a little bit better on that if you apply for something, that you want to use in your classroom and you win it, let's say you win a $5,000 grant and you want to buy this great software to use with the kids, and then you purchase it and it's great, except that it doesn't work with our computer. You're now expecting the technology department to fix the issue. So then sometimes, occasionally, so we try to be as proactive as possible, making sure that if you do something like that, and again, they're usually small grants, that you seek the permission of the technology department, you collaborate, and make sure that it's in line with the curriculum and all of those things. So we do have that in a limited way.
So is, in relation to the organizational chart, all of those that are listed, programs, any grants received by those programs come through
They have
central
to go through central
administration?
office. Yeah,
Okay.
the CDSE won't approve them until they're approved here.
So there is like a chart or some
Yes.
kind of information, and I know it gets reported through finance, but would you be able to share with the board
course.
that chart of
Yes.
what grant's working, who's working on it, when it was submitted, when it's going to be submitted, all of that information? Or what do you have?
What we have, yes,
Okay.
it's much easier.
Thank you. So whatever you have, like
Yeah.
what grant they're applying for,
Yes.
what grant they won,
Yes.
and what it's being put towards, I assume
Correct.
is what you have?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to be clear, we're talking about the public school grants
Yeah.
as an LEA, and what I think, maybe I'm going to tie that question is that that you're concerned that nonprofit, a nonprofit grant, is that where, I'm not sure if that was going. Okay,
Just grants within our district, public
yes,
schools.
yeah, ones that are
Any of the
approved as a school
programs that are
system.
benefiting from grants
Correct,
are applied for, approved by, managed by.
correct, yes.
Written on school time, written while they're a school employee, working for the schools, whether it's nonprofit or school.
If it's a separate entity, that, I don't approve separate entity, I know where
I'm
this
just
is going. Yeah,
saying, while
yeah.
they're being paid by the school, they should be writing school grants, not nonprofit grants.
It's definitely something we've discussed, and
Is there a
this is
question?
something that needs to continue to be
She's just
discussed.
commenting
It's
on it.
not part of the organizational chart.
Yep, Michelle, if I just clarify, I don't think that that's an organizational chart issue as opposed to protocol and procedure that you would like to see happen, which we can, once we get some feedback from an independent outside agency who's doing a review of those things, they'll provide guidance on best practice for us moving forward.
Kara, if I could just add, I think something that's important, there are a lot of big grants that we know we're entitled to every year. Alliance, IDA, your title grants, things like that. But for example, there are smaller grants, some are entitlement grants, meaning you're going to receive it assuming you follow their guidelines, and then there's competitive grants.
Right.
So recently, I'll give an example, McKinney-Vento, which supports our homeless students, came about with a $50,000 grant. Last month, if you asked Kara, it wasn't on her radar. We're now eligible to apply for it. I'm currently working on that grant. So there are smaller grants throughout the year that kind of pop up, where if we can get an extra $50,000 to support, transportation and resources for our students, we're gonna go for it. So I just wanna, I think it's important to know the big buckets and then those little smaller ones that come about. It also has happened frequently with federal dollars for special education students. If there are monies left over, they will oftentimes say, if you would like to apply, and they're very specific, you want to improve your transition programs, your autism programs, and those are things you can apply for. So I just think it's important to understand, like, we can give you a list, and maybe in 3 weeks, it might be slightly outdated because there's other things that come up. But the big bucket grants are always kind of pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, move on from grants.
Okay, so if there's no more questions on the visual structure, you know, and you have sort of the kind of the goal of what the positions, you know, are going to capture. But again, I mean, this is, you know, as the coach, you know, fields players in the best way that they have with the team, right? And so we have some strong players and very strong players, and our team is, you know, we're a little slimmer. But as we wear this on and as we, you know, over the course of the year, you know, we may make some tweaks to those things based on a lot of different things. So this is the plan for this year as we kind of wear it on for size, and we'll, you know, certainly circle back and you know, maybe solicit some discussion on it again. Okay. 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 Next up. Up here. The next document is really about the goals. And again, we started to dig into this a little bit. We sort of ran out of time in a board workshop, but you've had the document for a while. So I'd like to move through that. Ken?
Yep.
If I could just steal you.
Of course.
It's
First one.
very specific.
Right.
Those are the board goals. I just need the one that says, right there, yes. Thank you very much. Great, thanks, Ken. Okay, I'm gonna fast forward, unless you want me to discuss it all, vision and mission and my philosophy, which it, yeah, okay. Which, you know, if you read it, you can see that I'm super passionate about, you know, starting fresh in Danbury with a different mindset and changing hearts and minds about what it is, what Danbury can be. So we've been spending a lot of time with our leadership teams talking about that, really focusing in on what needs to, you know, what's within their locus of control. We don't have everything that we need all the time, but what is in our locus of control. So we do, that is how we really kicked off the year. I'll scroll down this way. This is a little awkward compared to a slide deck, but we're gonna roll with it. And of course, our belief statement, these are your belief statements. These are board adopted and they're in your policies. And I included those in there because those are collective work. The strategic goals, I'm not gonna go and read each one, but you have those in front of you. I will point out that these are the same goals that have been in play for a couple of years now. And I believe your last strategic plan was, that we said that would run to 2027. If I have that correct, we can fact check that on the website. But, you know, at any time, if the board wants to re-up their strategic plan and change the bigger goals, you know, that's something that we'll have to initiate. For those of you who work here to experience it, to arrive at these goals, we spent an incredible amount of time having community conversations, soliciting feedback from at least, I think we had 100 stakeholders. You were there for that, right? Yeah, Gladys and I think Rich, soliciting feedback from different stakeholders, teachers, community, business members, civic agencies. So that would be a process that we would have to, you know, that we should, to do it well, to engage in again. So, but these are pretty solid. If you look at a lot of other districts that are trying to make improvements, these are not atypical type of things. So, but certainly open to some suggestions. So we have goals around teaching and learning, which tend to be more practical, staff development, knowing that we develop our educators, good things will happen for kids. Everything's about the kids. So when you look at the goals, and this is I think a good thing to hold us accountable for the year, is that how is all the work that we're doing going to benefit kids, and the conversations that we're having, is it to benefit kids? And when we spend our time together, our limited time together, is it focused on on improving things for kids. Talent acquisition, continuing to retain a workforce, that's going to be a big challenge for us as we move forward. We've been struggling, and so how do we shift our resources, our efforts, our time and attention? School climate, as things have gotten tougher, digging into school climate becomes even more so important to make sure that we're keeping up that morale and that folks are productive and that we're attending to the social emotional growth. Meaningful collaboration, how are we working with our families to create those deeper engagement opportunities, and then resource allocation, which will be a huge focus for us this year, is how are we organizing ourselves to best attain our goals with the limited resources that we have. So some of the work plans, so what falls under the big goals generally are what's the work for the year? And some of this is a 2-year, sometimes they turn into 2-year and you repeat. So under the teaching and learning goal, implement year 1 of newly articulated programs for the career pathways. So right now our kids are just experiencing the essentials curriculum. So we're getting in there to monitor that, and we're going to be getting feedback on how that is going and making those adjustments. That the Ag Academy work is super important around articulating programs and career pathways. So we're still building those pathways and doing that work. Sustaining the science of reading shift. So we're rolling out the 4-5 this year. We rolled out K3. It's a lot to manage both because the teachers still need a lot of support for the K3. We already saw some great gains in our kindergarten as a result of the implementation, and we're super excited about that because the level of rigor is here. And so where we're seeing a little bit of gap is that the program is K2, and so those 3rd graders, there's a gap between 2 and 3, but we'll get that once we get the program fully implemented. And that vertical articulation between K5 is critically important to create that sort of those seamless grade level articulations across. So we're very happy so far, and the teachers are happy. So rarely do you roll out a big program and we don't have a lot of gruff. The teachers have been phenomenal. Everyone's working very hard, and we're working hard to support them. So we'll be reporting on how that's going over the year. I originally had this in over the summer, support a collaborative team effort to reconceptualize and redesign the middle school program. Common experiences, and this was really to get to that backward design for the academies. And we had Jay Steele who came in to present to us, and it was really focused on, how can we also incorporate the middle school. We're a little concerned about lifting this work this year, and so, I have that highlighted because I think we can get some stuff done with outlining, but I don't know how much we're actually going to be able to tackle. So, there is quite a bit in here, and so we may decide to, table 1 or 2 items, and I have some highlights on that. Not that we don't stop working at the middle school, but just in terms of professional resources that are going to be needed to do that, maybe a little bit tougher in the future. Okay. Design and communicate a system of school improvement and monitoring for the indicators of student success, specifically for student achievement. This is the most important indicator in the whole goal, in my opinion, outside of having a budget that's going to balance and that keeps us flush. I have a whole, I'm not going to do it now. Can I click on, hang on. Want to click on this? Yeah. I'll share this document with you. We're not going to do this tonight. But one of the reasons why this is the most important, 1.4, is because this is really what we need to track. And Renita, you made a comment about on EdSite is that we just need to start improving. When the needle starts to go, it's very difficult to say we're going to make 20% gains or we're going to make 10% gains. And so it's like, how do we get our systems in gear, and then how do we start moving out of this sort of pandemic slug? So, and it's tough because the resources are limited. If you want to make gains with student achievement and close gaps, you need teachers, student support specialists, and literacy leaders working with kids, right, to help them shore up some things and get them at grade level. So we're going to continue to still maximize the resources that we have in play. I'm not going to go through this whole presentation, but this is a presentation I do want to work with you on. A lot of this information comes from EdSite, so I'd like to be able to go through that. We're going to zoom out, but I think one of our workshops will be around this data, where we're at, where we're doing pretty good, where we're not doing well, and what we're going to focus our efforts on. Okay. So, ready or not, AI is everywhere, and it has infiltrated our school system, and we have to get on top of it. We have started a district committee of just internal interested folks who wanted to dig in. We've had some outside consultations, some advanced partners that wants to teach us what they know and how talk about applications for education, effective use. I think it's going to be really helpful to do this as a district, and I welcome board participation to start to dig into this, because it's going to inform the policies that you create around how we use this, what we allow, and which is going to be changing rapidly. So we'll talk more about a work plan of what this is going to look like, but it involves definitely, if you're interested, having an expert come in and do a workshop with the board, and I think you'll really enjoy it. It's fascinating stuff. Yes?
You have 2-year goal and you didn't have that on our.
Sorry. Yeah.
Is that it? So it's 2 years?
Yeah, I think, yes. One of the conversation with Gina Jasmine, who is kind of heading this up. Ken, we lost something here. With Gina Jasmine was that, while there's so much excitement around it, part of the work plan that we sat down to craft together was about getting teachers to do AI-assisted lesson plans and resources. So, to give you a quick example, you could create a really incredible science lesson, and an advanced text that's on grade level can be broken down into multiple reading levels for kids to help with differentiation. And it's an instant resource and tool for a teacher to help with that. Can take some lift. And so that's how we see using it, is how do we lift the things that have been heavy for us. There's been buzz around, students are going to be cheating, but it's really not about that. It's how do we use it effectively to support education and educators and administrators to lift some of the work and do it better. So we think that that's going to be a 2-year goal. We'll kind of start in the spring. So goal light, if you will. And I can articulate all of this in little work plans. And those are the things we'll use to monitor the evidence across the year. And we'll dig into those more. And you'll have access to that. So, thanks, Ken. You're my lifesaver. Thank you. Under staff development, the PDEC committee, huge lift this year is around that PDEC. Al, I'm sure you're going through it right now.
I'm already in it.
Yeah, you're knee deep in it, and it's a big shift for every district. Every district's going through it. And Anna Rocco, Dr. Anna Rocco, she's still here. She's leading that effort. We had to create a manual. You approved that in the spring, if you remember. Spring was a bit of a blur, but you did approve that plan, and we are training and implementing, and we'll have cycles of movement around that. So we'll be reporting out on how that is going across the year. Structures and systems to coordinate the scheduling of high-quality professional PD. So there's been a lot of work recently. We started this kind of last year around making sure that what we're offering is balanced, and that the trains aren't crashing, and that we're not oversaturating or missing anything in our professional learning plan for teachers. So we'll be laying this out and making sure that that plan addresses the priorities in the strategic plan, but also the ones that are going to drive improvement efforts. Prioritize funding to support curricular training PD in MLL. If you remember, we won a federal appropriation to do some work, bless you, on the academies, but also to support access in curriculum and instruction around second language learners. And so we have some training that'll be paid for with that federal grant that'll be there. So we'll be focusing efforts on that and reporting out on that. Talent acquisition, advanced marketing and recruitment strategies, partnerships with higher ed, regional teacher pipeline programs, and expand the applicant pool. A lot of this is also going to be embedded in the increasing educator diversity plan. And so it's kind of one and the same, do our staff members reflect our diversity? We'll be looking at that. We're going to be looking at more numbers around that. We're going to be looking at the hiring process, and we've got a plan in place to dig into that. And we'll be reporting out on that as well. Implementing the diversity plan, increasing diversity plan in collaboration with area partners. Those two probably could be combined, really, for ease of things. But celebrate the accomplishments of teachers. This is another one that's also embedded in that increasing educator plan. So how this helps with retention. So how are we celebrating you as for the growth that you're making with the kids and the work that you're doing, and making sure that we're acknowledging the work at all levels in the system, not just the teachers, para-educators, custodians, to make an effort around that. This one is particularly focused on the teaching staff. research, plan, and execute administrative reorganization. So that's part of the goal, is that we enact this reorganization and we wear it on for size, and that we see if it's serving the needs of the system.
Any more questions after?
Uh,
One minute.
How far are we? Well, what, 4? It's up to you. Or Gladys, I should say. You want me to take questions
Yeah,
now?
that's good. Right. Okay, so for goal number 3, it would be helpful to know if these are the same goals that were in place last year. And so when you use words like advance, is it different than what we did last year? Are the strategies any different? And so it's, and that may be in the evidence a little bit later, but certainly these, I'm going to assume that we're not going to continue along the same lines without exploring new, innovative ways of recruiting, of partnering, of expanding, because as we said before, on EdSite, you can go on and we certainly can look up and look at the ratio of our population versus the diversity of our staff. We can break it down by school, and we are not hitting the mark. So I just want to know if these goals, have they just stayed the same and moved from year to year?
So your broader goal, the goal statement has been the same, and the things that fall underneath it are kind of like the targets for the work year. And so there's been a lot of work recently around identifying teacher pipeline programs, bolstering those. So we'll be focusing on those. But I will say, part of the help with the HR department is in that recruitment, to go out and do. We need to send somebody out. The Increasing Educator Diversity Grant allows for some money around that, and so we're going to be focusing some efforts on that. But we don't have a full body dedicated to that. Who's doing that full time. In terms of, yep.
Is there a new mandate in that area of diversity?
Well, yeah, we have the Increasing Education or Diversity Plan is the call to action to move. But also, if I could just point out a little bit, is that one of the things that I think that we haven't, I'd say that I think we're understanding more deeply, even though we've experienced, we live it every day, is, that it's not just about race, it's not just about ethnicity, but it's this linguistic diversity too. And we've taken steps last year, if you remember, we wrote grants to train an entire cadre of our current existing staff, because bilingual staff, so our largest population in Danbury right now that we're serving is our Hispanic population. That is the rapidly growing, the need for bilingual teachers, particularly Spanish, is extremely high. And so we just don't have the staff. They're not out there. And so we adopted, last year we began to grow, we're growing our own program, and we trained 20 teachers to get their TESOL certification, and we paid for that through reimbursement. And so teachers took the test, so we're creating our own. So if you're a chemistry teacher and you want to get your TESOL certification, we paid for that through the grant as a way to advance and recruit, but with our own. So that is very new. That is very new.
Can I just add
Sure.
one more comment? So one of the things that we've been looking carefully at are districts our size, comparable size. And within their talent office or their chief human resources office, there's basically 3 tranches. One is human relations operations. So how do you process, how do you bring people in, how do you do their benefits? Operational. One is labor. What do the contracts say? Who's negotiating the contracts? Do you investigate Title IX complaints? How do you investigate complaints in the workplace? How do you counsel some of your supervisors to deal with staff costs? And the third tranche is recruitment, development, and retention. Hartford has 4 people who do that. Norwalk has 4 people who do that.
Just that part.
Just that part. And so what you have now in your organizational chart is me and 3 HR staff.
Including the benefits.
Who
person.
deal with benefits, certification, onboarding, unemployment support, workers' comp, the outside litigation, so when we get sued for a slip and fall, we have insurance counsel. All of that is coming from me and 3 administrative staff, basically. And so if we are talking about, and the conversations I've had with Kara are, these are large goals, they're important goals about how do we look at recruitment and retention, but we simply don't have the bandwidth to get there. You know, we don't. And so when we're talking about establishing more robust programs and how do we bring these students or these teacher residents, how do we bring them in? How do we acclimate them? How do we find them? How do we make sure that they're comfortable? Who's their mentor teacher? Who's monitoring them? Who's meeting with them as a cohort? There's simply no one in our structure to do that right now. And that's really to your question, Juanita. Of course, every year we refine, we talk about these same goals, but we're on the precipice now of really making an even larger statement about how important this is to us, and we don't have a person to do it. I can't say it any other way than that.
Can we add a person?
Yes, we'd love to add a person.
I
I mean, you don't have a DEI officer, you don't have a recruitment person. Yes.
Well, I think a recruitment person first.
Great, but we also wanna pay the safety advocates more money, and we also wanna
Right.
do this, and we just, I mean,
This is all.
I mean, there's a lot of places we need to just do, and we need to figure out where that money comes from. Sorry, Gladys, I didn't mean to like jump in there, but
Right.
you know, there's a lot of places we need, but we don't have the money to just do.
It is the push-pull, right?
Right.
So knowing that what we need, having, you know, people willing, you know, like, yes, we know we need to do this. But again, you know, like we've had, you know, financial issues, audits we've got across the board. But this was the one that Kim and I have talked about, you know, I don't want to. Kim's probably been in my office about 12 times over this. Like, we gotta get on this.
There's
Yeah.
the super goalie, we could really use happy, you know, Dancy.
Yeah.
Then there's the, we really need and want, and then there's the,
Yeah.
this is what we got, guys. You know?
It is super important. I think we do a really good job for the people who come to us, that we are very, we do a great job of making sure that we're selecting folks that reflect that that's an asset, that is an asset in our school system. And, you know, the retention piece we have to work on, but it's for everybody, but also, you know, who needs what, maybe something a little bit different here to feel welcome in the school system, and are we doing a good job with that, and how do we monitor those things and check in on those? So we know that there's work in here that needs to be done. The increasing educator diversity grant that they just released, you know, we have emails out to say, how much of this can we use for a little bit of recruitment? How much can we use for affinity groups? So that we have new teachers who, and it's for everybody, and affinity groups for anybody, but that we're able to support conversations that you may not want to have in the school building about how things are going, and that those are facilitated. So we've got feelers out in those areas, but they're stipended, they're small things. It's not a person or two that's driving that I'm going to go out and we're going to get, and then we're going to check in and retain from the retention and meet with those. We don't have that extra couple.
Juanita, will you do?
How will you?
Did you have,
Okay.
Mr. Gianelli?
Kara, to Kim's point, would it be worthwhile when this document gets advanced to highlight those goals that are truly goals, but due to financial constraints can't be accomplished or partially being done? I think it becomes good, because as a review in a couple of months to come when we're preparing a new budget, it would be a good document, a good indication, good talking points is to justify our need for more funding, is to say, look, in order for us to accomplish this particular objective or goal, we need more staffing to do the following, which would then result in, you know, higher expectations, higher returns.
Absolutely. I mean, we should be doing that work. You know, the tricky part about this is that, you know, this is the work that we should be doing, right? There's no question about that. It is, but it will always come down to some of the funding and Kelly. Oh, I'm sorry, Gladys.
Is it okay if I make a
No.
comment?
Yeah, Teresa, go ahead, Kate, go ahead, Kelly.
I was just gonna say, some of it on like the recruitment end too, like we look at the exit surveys and we talk about why people are leaving. I'll use just 2 examples, for example, within my department. School counselors, their caseloads are higher than our counterparts. We have made headway on reducing the counselor caseloads, particularly at the high school level. We're making really good progress on that. We still have room to grow at the middle school level. So some of the feedback we're getting is caseloads. The answer to that is hiring more people. We don't have the funding to do that. Similarly with speech and language pathologists. That is probably an area that we see one of the most significant levels of turnover in the special education, or I would say in the district at large. And the number one reason for that is caseloads. The answer to that is more bodies. So I just want to bring that as like I think we know the answers that we need to implement for some of these problems, not all of them, but for some of them, but we are challenged by the money. And so while we always sit together and come up with these really innovative ideas, I think if you said to us, money is no object, go fix it, and it's not all money, but a lot of it is money, and our hands are tied with a lot of those things. So having those honest, realistic conversations of what can we truly impact and change. If someone is not feeling supported, that's a different conversation versus my caseload's too high and we don't have any money to hire more people. Those are 2 different buckets.
Do we have sign-up bonuses?
Yes.
For certain, you know,
So for-
needed groups or
For
whatever?
I'm glad you brought this, for paraprofessionals, I think there's like an $800 sign-on bonus. What we pay paraprofessionals is, could be more competitive, let's put it that way. But what we'd like to do, quite frankly, is to have in the shortage areas, to be able to do that. But that's a union negotiated stipulation. So in the past, that has not been not been a desirable approach. You can certainly approach again.
So like, for example, Norwalk, they give additional compensation for things like ESL certification.
Yeah.
That's a mandatory subject of bargaining. So you have to bargain that with your teachers. Similarly with the paras, we had to bargain over the signing bonus, and the paras were very amenable to the signing bonus. It doesn't seem to have made a difference, but so that kind of additional compensation is all something that is a mandatory subject of bargaining. So we have to get both
Norwalk
sides to agree.
scooped a lot of our bilingual.
Norwalk, we train them and they take them.
And a lot of districts in shortage areas are paying people higher up on the teacher salary. So if it's an identified shortage area, and there are numerous, math, science, school counselors, special education and related services, they start them, if they're a year 1 teacher, they start them with 5 years of credit. So we can't compete with that when a year 1 teacher can start step 6 in another district.
Julie?
I want to ask, but I'm not sure if you have questions, a QA at the end of this presentation.
Yeah, but definitely. Yeah, we stopped
So,
here. I took a question and opened up. Yep. Which, happy to answer more. Your
So
call.
I'm just, I'm glad that we're having this conversation because this is a high goal, should be for our district. And this has been, being born and raised here in Danbury, this has been a sticky issue when we come to diversity racially and ethnically. And so to have gone through a school system and not until I reached high school, seeing a teacher who looked like me, it's heartbreaking. So now that we talked about the population here, and I know that when we go to hire, that we are looking for the best, the most competent, et cetera, but if we are not educated in keeping our eyes focused on some of the emotional, psychological needs of our students, by the mere encouraging them by who they see standing in front of them or in the hallway day in and day out. I think we're doing a disservice to our students. And so that's why I enjoy this conversation. I'm glad that it's open and people are contributing, and hopefully it's an area that we will continue to focus on. Thank you.
I agree with you. It's important. gonna, I think I got to 3-4, so I'm gonna scoot down to school climate. Sorry for the page break. So this one is about promoting safe and supportive learning environments, nurturing social emotional. So the work plan there would be to promote an environment that creates a welcoming workplace where staff and students feel safe and supported. And so some of that, we can get through with survey information. We have end of year climate surveys that get sent out, and so we will continue to monitor those and talk about the trends that emerge out of that. And then as we have baselines on what that looks like, what do we need to do to improve and where do we need to? Okay. Implement strategies to address chronic absenteeism in school. As you know, we've partnered quite a bit, and it's in another one of the boxes around our Danbury Collective work and supporting that. And so we have very good representation both in the district and community partners on that. But we have a tremendous amount of effort happening through the LEAP grant under Kelly's leadership with reducing chronic absenteeism and really maintaining the systems and the guidance for the folks who are involved to be reaching families and to stay on top of that. It's a constant, you can't back down. The minute you back down, we kind of lose ground. And so the state actually, across the state through the LEAP grant, and the results have been very promising, so they funded the grant again. So we did, Kelly, how much did we receive this year?
Just about 300,000.
Right, and so last year when we had to reduce the budget, we took the family liaisons, the remaining ones, we had to reduce them and put them in the grant, and they've been instrumental, but also created, like stipends for other people to go out and contact and make.
We were able to carry over a little money from last year's grant, so we're a little bit over the 300,
Yeah.
but
It's been very effective.
It's about half of what we had in prior years.
Yeah, but they maintained it, hope they continue so.
Sure,
But
thankfully.
it's the work and then staying on top of the work and checking the data, which is super important. So we're gonna stay on top of that. Ensuring consistent approach to positive behavior support. So we've trained everybody now in K-8 on positive PBIS, positive behavior support. And so now we're asking through their school improvement planning, but also in the way that they're rolling that out this year, and that they're instituting the practices that they've learned so that we are reducing suspensions, expulsions, and class disruptions. We had a lot of expulsions last year, we had some issues, and we're trying to get a handle on that. And so this is in sort of the, kind of 1.2 stages of rollout in the schools. We'll be monitoring that and reporting out on how that's going as well. Design and implement teacher leadership opportunities to increase voice, talent development, participation, teacher leaders across the district. So if you remember last year, I proposed an idea to raise the voice of teachers and get them more involved, and we have several stipends across the district, dozens and dozens now. Those postings, dozens and dozens, thank you, Kim, will go up and teachers will be able to apply for those. We've communicated our expectations around that. And so we'll have lots of teacher leaders in the building to assist with the principal leadership, but also to be role models and mentors and to help with some of the lift the work in the school. So we're excited about that, and we'll be reporting out on how that's going as well. And last, meaningful collaboration, redesign the high school website. This one's highlighted. We're a little stuck on this one because there is a big financial commitment to it, and as we start to put the budget together this fall and finish the grants, this is going to be one of those, if we could find a pocket of money in a grant by the time we're done with programming for the fall, we might be able to slip this in here. But Mike, do you want to explain a little bit about the cost and why this is kind of a little tricky?
So back before we redid the district website, the district website and the high school website sat on a separate server. All the other school sites were Google Sites. So when we took that district website off that other server and created our new site, the new site was on a new server with the group that designed it. So now that Danbury High School site is the only one left on that old server. We still have to pay an annual fee for that hosting service. So we want to get that off of there so we can stop paying that every year. But also, because now we have the academy starting, we have Danbury West coming on board, it really seems to be the right time to sort of do this refresh and make sure the high school website is sort of serving both schools, and then it's really kind of framed around the academies. And it looks a little dated. It kind of feels like, a Yahoo site from the early 2000s. So, it's time for a refresh, and we want to redo it. But, to Kara's point, we had it scoped out last year. It's about anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 to have it rebuilt. We had it mapped. They put the scope in there. But that's also one part of it. There's a tremendous amount of labor that goes into this too. You have to constantly be editing material that goes in there. There's a ton of dead pages on that website. A club page, a club that started 5 years ago and just sort of withered away, and then it's still sort of on the load of that website, even though it's sort of not visible to anybody. So it's coming through a lot of that stuff, kind of figuring out what's relevant, what can go, what can get deleted. It's a lot of labor, and then you have to train the new users of the site too. So everybody from somebody updating a football or basketball schedule to somebody who's going to be putting the phone numbers and everything else on there too. So it's a pretty heavy lift, but if we can find the money, I do think it's one that's worth making the effort for this year.
Kate?
I know that we got a block grant that was being used for working on.
Federal?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that space for academic schools?
It depends, those are a little harder to revise, and their reporting is like a little, I'm not gonna say scary, but it's a little scary, because but we can do I'm pretty sure we can do a revision, so if there's something that we're not doing or we can't get to in that grant, it is possible. So the answer is, it is possible. Yeah. But I think, we might be able to tuck it in the line once we're done programming it. It's a $30 million grant, 50,000 or 100,000 is in the scheme of that, but we have to have it available. And, but I think we're gonna, put it in the parking lot and revisit it a little bit in the fall once we know where we are.
What's the annual fee that we're paying for the old website now?
About $12,000.
Right. So it's like we want to do it,
Right.
but you got to have the money to to do the big job.
Right.
Yeah. So it's an annoying one of those things where you should be doing it.
Right.
Yes.
Because you're paying the $12,000
You're paying the $12,000 regardless, and you don't want to invest in that website anymore.
Right.
You don't want to load all the new things in there because that's a lot of work. You want to load them on a new site. So, okay. Support. We kind of mentioned this before. Supporting the structures of collective impact, and this is where we'll start to talk about when Gladys wants to. Gus will present, I guess, the board goals, where kind of the work that we do together kind of crosses over a little bit. And I think that's one of them is the collective impact. And then this one here, 5.4, implement the parent-teacher home visiting model. This is another one that recently, as we were digging in, and I was talking to Ann, this is where teachers get trained, particularly kindergarten and first grade teachers. We really wanted to see this happen. They get trained and they go out and do home visits and welcome the families in. Right, so make those initial contacts and conversations. So we have to get willing teachers to do it, and but we don't have a line item right now. But again, this is one of those things that if we can get some money in there, we're going to try to slip it in, because these are once you get people kind of trained, that the big expense is in the front end of it. So it would be a good thing to do, and it helps with some of our other goals as well. So I'll come back on those. Establish year-long calendar superintendent engagement opportunities. We kind of got started on that. Saturday's a big day, September 21st, if you want to come out to Broadview. But we'll have a calendar, and already the calendar's already kind of cooking. And I think it's good to sit down and make sure that we've got our bases covered and we can develop that out. And that helps with your goals, my goals, and our school system. Last section is under resource allocation, create a plan with the city. So this is where get out early and start talking to the mayor about our needs. Happy to do that. We've had some initial conversations just to say, hey, this is important, and we're all in agreement that it's important. And I'm very hopeful that we're going to have great communication and dialogue on those things. And there's a lot. What's not on here? There's a lot that's not on here. So we have to move at the end of this year. This entire building, the building down the street, the building across the hall, we have to move. It's a mega project. Mike is going to be organizing that mega project to move everybody to the places where we have to go. Danbury High School also has to move. And all those teachers and their belongings and those things have to move. And all the connections have to be made. And then we have to see what equipment, we're going to keep at DHS, and what equipment has to go sharing things, right? And then, purchasing the things that
And you have to make sure those feelings are,
all
for
the,
the teachers.
all the feelings, yes, that is also part of it. But also too, we'll find out what's covered in the bond package in terms, we submitted a lot of equipment requests and things that we're gonna need, but not everything is gonna be eligible. And so that'll become more clear across the year. But we can use the money that account that we talked about earlier for those expenses to get the academy up and running. Okay, but that's another big project that might be tackling. And we'll all be doing. And also the goal too is to try to get Reach and Endeavor into this building. There's a cost for that too, so we're trying to get a handle on that and see how we can fit that in. Develop a 3-year financial outlook, talk about that one, and review financial operational efficiency. So some of that has already started, so the work this summer that we did, the work around the grants that's coming, and then, how we do our budget planning process to make sure that we're, that we are really sure that we have it right, and that everything's clear and transparent, and that we've had time to dialogue on those processes and continually work to improve those. So I'll be creating, continuing to build our evidence around those practices. Okay, so I think that's it. I know that was a lot. It's a dense document. Need to do that. And questions?
You want this?
Drew, I would leave it back up, yes.
Yes. Yes, I have a quick question based on the goal 3 and based on what we were talking about, improvement and keeping staff. How do you staff get to know how they could apply for existing opportunities? How can they know who they can reach in case they want to keep on the path towards certifications? I mean, how, if I'm starting again and if I'm an employee at DHS, and I want to know, how do I get to know, how can I take the next step?
Sure. So when we have opportunities, for example, when we created the ARCTEL teacher certification program, I drafted a very nice, this is what it is, this is the purpose of it, please take advantage of it. If you want to sign up, now's your time to do it. That information comes in. So it goes out to an all staff, kind of all call, and then we solicit everybody who's interested in there, and then we begin communicating with that group from that point. We've done that for multiple things. So the TESOL one is an example of that. We also did this recently with the CTE. That's another one. Make sure I write that in there as our evidence that we are going to be needing more CTE teachers as this academy grows, and that's your STEM career technical education, and it's a relatively easily obtainable certification. You just need to have teacher can get a cross endorsement. Now you can get a cross endorsement in CTE. I might have to recruit you. But what we did with that is, there's a couple of workshops that are provided, and then we'll pay for that workshop for you to do it. And you have to take the test, and we'll pay for your test. And we'll get you certified. We'll get you cross endorsed. So again, it's a grow your own program, and we advertise that district-wide. So we put out the information as we create the opportunities, and then somebody's designated. So for example, Melissa Nadeau ran the CTE. She had teachers in here for 4 or 5 workshops, and she got them ready for the test, and she did that in the district. But it was advertised widely.
And on the same sentence, how do you follow up with people that have tried to find a job in Denver Public Schools?
Kim, do you want to take that one?
And so was the question, how do we follow up with
Yes.
people? Okay, so it depends on how they come in. Some people just come in cold into Applejack and they apply for the jobs. Some people might be candidates that we talk to that might be available or better in a different position. So I talk to, or I endeavor to talk to every offer that we make to a certified staff member. So I talked to about 140 people this summer. Talk to them, tell me about where do you see yourself going? Is this the right position? Some people who don't get jobs may come back around and say, hey, I didn't get this one, keep me in mind. So I try to kind of keep that communication. Similarly, we try to make sure that those administrators, because remember we're decentralized in hiring. So the high school does their hiring, the middle schools do their hiring. So we try to encourage them also to give us feedback about big eyes of people that they might see. Like we've got several teachers who had left the district or are coming back this year. There are people that, I called Christy, remember this teacher, she worked for you, what's your feedback on that? So we try to kind of stay in touch with people that way. It's definitely largely anecdotal. The other thing we do is we push out to everybody that's got certification in a particular area, kind of a marketing thing. So that may be people that have applied to us before and didn't get it, but we have this really great letter that we put together about the high school, the academies. I know Dr. Zelita did a great one about here's what Rogers Park is all about, and we blast that out far and wide to certified staff. So we have a number of ways. They're all kind of personal. We all try to stay in touch with folks and circle back around. The people that I think are most ripe for our conversations truly are our para-educators, who we have tried really hard this year to pivot a little bit on our marketing campaign. So come for a job, leave with a career is what we're trying to lead with. So get those folks in. I know Kelly and I several times a year will look at what the degree status is, who's got a bachelor's, who's got credits, and we're looking at how do we create some assistance for them so that they can go and try to become certified teachers while not having to give up their job. So those are the kind of that grow your own piece that we're trying to share with them opportunities on what to do next. The last thing I'll say is the Delta Aspirant Program is another really good way of how we try to invent or create new opportunities for people that maybe they want to become administrators. So you see all these lead teacher postings going up, people that may just dip their toe into the administrator waters, see how they like it, serve on committees, and then may go into the Delta Aspirant Program, apply to get into that program that we run internally that's all about how to become an administrator, what are the things you need to know. And that program, I think, is starting to really gain some more traction publicly among our folks about that's a great way to kind of get on the radar of somebody who wants to step into an administrator position. So we try kind of a throw it all out there approach, and then really try to identify those folks that we really see as people that we'd love to keep in the district in a different capacity. I'm sorry that's so long, but it's a lot of different things.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Kara, is it possible, getting back to your strategic plan, is that once we've sort of adopted, assuming that's a good word, the superintendent goals or agreed to them, the board goals, et cetera, could we then look at the strategic plan collectively and say that although it was written several years ago, at this particular point, we still feel we're on track, or if not, maybe tweak it so that to your statement that was planned several years ago, but it's evaluated each year as a living document.
Right.
Can we do something like that?
We can, yeah, we could start with the goal statements. Is this goal statement capturing everything? And sometimes they're just nuanced words,
Right.
how do we capture some things that we haven't quite gotten to yet, so that the work plan underneath reflects the vision of the goal. Because the work plan is really how to some step in the chain to achieve some part of that goal that's above it. And so if there's something missing in the goal, we might not be prompted to create work plans around it. So it's always important to check those. So I agree.
This way, people don't get the feeling we do something just leave it
To chance.
gather dust or something.
Oh, okay, absolutely.
Yeah, makes sense.
We've been here a long time. Our goal is to be out of here by 8:30. And since we're finishing up with the goals, we want to look at the board goals and the superintendent. And I sort of talked, if we don't get through this tonight, we're going to get through it at the next meeting or the superintendent evaluation. So, only 3 of us submitted something, and we sort of tied it together. And the superintendent just said that she would like to see how these are going to mesh with her goals, and it's something that we might be able to take out that might be reflected in her goals, that's repeating the same thing. So, and I'm going to give board members the opportunity, if, you didn't get a chance to add anything to these goals, or you have something that you want to put in, give us an opportunity to go over it again before we look at adopting. Okay? Everybody have it? The first goal, Carol, do you want this?
say that, how that's going to.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's just look at goal 1 and see anything in there that's compared with your goals, your 6 goals, that is duplicated.
Sure. So, yeah, and again, these are your goals, but, you know, in looking at these and reviewing them, I think they're good. And I think they're very appropriate. Under the clarified, so there's a couple things. So some places are a very tight fit, and some places are more just generic. But under the first one, this is obviously a very board-specific goal. And so that's kind of just cuts across all lanes, so that's fine. And then the second one, again, is another one that's very generic. So you're going to help with all the goals. So it doesn't, I don't really start to make the tighter connections until we get down 3 through 7. So build a clear understanding of cabinet positions, responsibilities, and appropriate chain of command. That ties directly with 3.4 in my goals, which deals with the reorganization. So those two things work very closely together, and it's great that we're both going to be talking about those things over time. Your goal number 4, improve board members' understanding of district finances, ties very nicely with 6.1 and 6.2, which deals with finances and resources, so that's great. That's going to be super important this year. Improving communication between board members, between board and superintendent, and between the board and the public to improve overall culture of the board and transparency operations. This is a great discussion point on what does that actually look like, and what does that mean for you, and what does that mean for me. We may have had a couple of moments of bumping where we're like, I thought this or I thought that, and so how do we have those communication discussions on the table on how you need to be communicated with, and am I doing that for you, and vice versa? Are we communicating well with one another? So how do we do that? So that would be 4.1 in my opinion on my goal sheet. Number 6, create an awareness of chronic absenteeism, substance abuse. That's a good ringer for 4.2. And number 7, ensure families are aware of their rights, obligations, and understanding of district discipline policy. And some of that can be accomplished through 5.5, which is the superintendent getting out there in the community and us engaging with folks and getting them to understand. Some of that will happen on Saturday when I talk a little bit about some of the things that gets kids in trouble. So I think there's some great connections there, and again, these are your goals. So I welcome any other discussion on ways to connect.
Okay? I have nothing to add to the goals, okay?
Well, can I bring up about meeting at the Rivington?
Why did you, I thought I was the chairperson, I was just getting ready to bring that up. Sorry.
Glory.
We have an invitation to go up to the Rivington. Teresa, you want to explain?
As somebody know,
We need to talk into the mic.
Thank you. As some of you might know, I live up at the Rivington, west side of Danbury, and it's a good sizable population. And we have a clubhouse, and we've been invited to hold a meet and greet in the clubhouse. We're looking at October 8th. That was the night we could get. It's a Tuesday night. I would provide coffee and cookies, and just invite the residents to meet us, ask any questions. And I didn't know if that was something the board would be interested in doing.
My only question is,
7 o'clock?
my only question is,
No.
excuse me, my only question is, are you inviting the full board? And what type of questions are gonna come out of that meeting if the full board attends the meeting? Is it a social event or questions people, your group in the Rivington want to put towards the board?
I think it was generally a meet and greet. Our taxes, the school budget is at least half our taxes, if not more. And a lot of these people are from New York State. they're not familiar with us, local folks in general. And this is a good opportunity to meet. They can meet us, ask questions. It's very informal. I was looking at it, we could structure it the way we want it. It was just an opportunity that they don't give out too often. So we wanted to seize the day, and hopefully we can do something. If not, it's okay.
And again, my question is, once we do this for your group, who else do we have to do it for? Because somebody is going to find out.
Well, I was looking at it as part of this 5, to prove, what do you call it, communication between the board and the public, and this is part of the public. I wasn't looking down the road, I was just looking at my particular neighborhood. And then we would put it on our calendar, we would invite the Rivington people to come. That's all I was looking at. But if this is not something you would want to come on a
No,
Tuesday
that's why
night.
we're discussing. I brought it to the board and we want to decide if it's something that you would like to do. Yes, Kate?
So I personally like to meet and greet. I think that's a really important part of the work that we do as board members. The thoughts that are going through my head right now are, how do we figure out who's going to be there that evening to represent the board? If it's open to the whole board, we have to be very careful about skirting the line of whether or not it's a meeting. And so I just want to be conscious of that as we plan. And then the other part is just to sort of take a temperature with the other board members here. There's no saying what questions will come up. And sometimes, even in talking to folks, one-on-one, you can get a very difficult question that, you may not be able to answer or have the authority to answer. And I just want to make sure that if we're doing something as a group event like this, that, folks here at the table are going to be comfortable saying, well, I can't speak for the whole board, or, I don't have a good answer for that, but I can track down some information for you. Because I think part of this too is just having some awareness on our part that we have to be very aware of how we're communicating with people. It's very different in a group setting like that versus a one-on-one conversation in the supermarket, or you bump into somebody. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thanks.
Mr. Janelle?
Mrs. Cooper and Terry, my feeling is not to do this in this function as a social function. And I can go into the reasons why, but I think it would be more beneficial at the time when we prepare our next budget, because at that time, one of the biggest problems we have is our outreach to the public and how we do that. And I think at that time, if we have here an invitation, we have a group of people specifically to enlighten them on the budget, the trials and tribulations of our budget, as well as us making a presentation to the citywide PTO, as well as us extending offers to other people in the community. And over past years, we've had it at the Greek Orthodox Church. We held functions there. So I think in that setting, it would be more appropriate to do it as part of a board educational process regarding the budget, rather than a social event, a meet and greet. I just think there'd be a little bit more backlash as to why this group, why not me, and we get into that nonsense when it would serve more of a purpose. When we're making a budget presentation and need the input of the residents to support us and understand why we're asking for this money. So I think at that particular point it would serve more of a purpose. And then we can field specific questions relative to the issues of finance and the school district.
Michelle?
Yes, I think it's a great idea. I have sat as the chair of community relations. I've been in the meetings. I've heard members right now saying, how can we, for the last year, engage and get the Board of Ed members to meet the community? And this is an opportunity. This isn't about, I don't think, finance and all of that. I thought this was a meet and greet, and it could be as easy as what you do when we have our meeting, you know, when we have the candidates present themselves. Having a microphone, if you want to answer it, answer it. If you don't, don't. If you want it to be casual. But we always talk about this, and this is the opportunity that we're saying, no, we have to have it formalized and with a large group. I mean, obviously, with what Kate said, you have to be cognizant of it being a quorum or a meeting. But to start now saying it's either in this venue, we've had it in the past, or let's get everything ready for the budget. We're not talking about the budget. We've talked about introducing and meeting the Board of Ed members. No? So I would like to attend, because I attend almost any other community relations event that we have. Thank you.
Al?
I think it's a great idea. And I understand that it's one particular group, but if we open it up to where we create it and do one every ward, like we do, I think that will give we want to become transparent to the community. We want to be able to reach out to the community, listen to the community. Yeah, we listen to them all the time, most of the time, but there are, like, you know, what Teresa said, that, you know, Rivington on that side of the city, there's a lot of New Yorkers, working New Yorkers, they leave at, you know, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and they don't roll in until 7. They're really not involved with the dynamics of our great city. And I think that would be a great opportunity to, especially if they have children, and, you know, there are a lot of parents out there who do not want to put children in our public system, in our public schools, okay? And we have to, and because they don't feel confident enough. We're running that problem, you know, lower part of Fairfield County, all right? There are a lot of parents there, they're paying public school, private schools because they don't feel that they trust the public schools. I think we have a great public school system here. I think getting out there and being transparent and not being able to answer any questions they might have. And just like Kate, I agree with Kate. If you don't know the answer, you just tell them, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'll get back to you. Give me your email address. We'll have one of the cabinet members to answer the question. And that's what public relations is all about. And that will gain, I think, from my perspective, from a leadership perspective, is part of the culture that we're trying to build here, being transparent, and I think people will have more respect for that.
Eleanor?
I also agree, it's a great idea, and I agree with what Al said, just hitting the different community that may not be able to be connected with us or be at our meetings or know what's going on. And also to Rich's point that, it's a great idea for budget season as well, but if we start with maybe Teresa's group at budget season and then this group wants us and that group wants us, but if we start now and all these groups see that we're available and we'll come to you and we'll be part of your community, then at budget season, we'll have a flow of maybe other groups that have already signed up or want us to be part of their space, instead of just, going to Teresa's group and then having this slew of places that come to us, and we can't fit 20 places in at budget season, and then that's a problem. So I think starting now would be a great idea and just setting that tone.
Thank you. Yes, Juanita.
I am not opposed to the idea, but my suggestion would be is, again, we cannot target one community in a city as vast as Danbury is. So if you're talking about reaching out to all the communities, different communities in Danbury, that would be a great idea. And I think that we have, just as if you're inviting into the Rivington community, then those meetings should be held in the communities where our families live. And so our board members need to be also willing to go to those communities also. I have a question, Lauren, so I am saying.
I understand what you're saying.
We have large, and I'm saying, you know, no, we're not gonna, granted, you have a community room. Are you willing to meet in Laurel Gardens? Are you willing to meet in Eden Drive? Are you willing, and I'm not talking about it might be the school, but it may not be. Laurel Gardens has a community room. And so that's a wonderful thing, but we have pockets of communities that also need the same introduction and the same fellowship and the same collaboration and the same knowledge.
And, I'm sorry. Julie?
I just want to add to you what you just point and to Mrs.
Julie, I can't hear you.
I just want to add.
Yes.
If we don't take the first step, if we don't engage any group, who's doing the connections? At least somebody's trying. I'm not saying like, okay, let's not do this one, but who's gonna reach out to the gardens? Who's gonna reach out? Who has the connection? And who is actually gonna do the connection in order for all of us go around and pass and be, social. But if we don't reach out to anybody and we don't do at least one step at a time, we're never gonna achieve anything. I'm not trying to take your comments out, but what I'm trying to say is that at least Teresa is trying to reach out at some point. And if we don't, as a group, come together and say, okay, let's do this, and this is one event. Let's try to make the second event. But nobody comes with nothing at the end of the day. Period. That's what I want to say.
Al, we're not going to, okay, 8:30, okay? This was a brief discussion, we're gonna make up our mind, this was not on the agenda. So I'm not gonna sit here all go round and round talking about this. Al?
This is a great discussion, and that's part of community relations. What I would suggest is that, and I agree with everyone's in here, and I agree with Julian saying that we had to start somewhere. There's nothing wrong with us marketing and saying, hey, come and meet the Board of Education members, all right? And Ward 7, first day is going to be in Rivington, and the second one could be at Mill Ridge or West Side Middle School. Combine it with the PTO and say, hey, come and meet, so that now you're spreading me to the different parts of the city that, people from Mill Ridge can come, or we can do something downtown to Ellsworth, and you can get Laurel Gardens to come, and so on. I think in moving it around the different wards, different locations, try to piggyback with the PTO. That will help the PTO also to recruit and all that. I really think it's a great idea to start somewhere.
Okay, Kate, and then we're gonna close it up.
So I guess I'm thinking about it as like a reverse engineering thing, where maybe we as a board, pick out some dates that we're willing to do meet and greet opportunities like this. And then, I don't know if we offer that at large to the public to come to those things. We specify the place and then, we come. But I think, part of this is like, yes, we need to start somewhere, but we also need to have a roadmap for where we take it from here. We just have one particular event, and then the board loses its motivation to continue with this work. That really isn't fair to anybody else who might want to have access to the same opportunity. So I just want to make sure as we do this, we do it in a sort of structured way that reinforces that we are here and committed to continuing to connect with people.
Yes.
Because I'm assuming I will be at these, so. Just, I think it's a great idea, but I also just, in terms of planning, it might be very appropriate, if I might suggest, to move that to the Community Relations Committee for further discussion, to plan out something strategic around, okay, let's look at the catchment areas in our city and the different types, and to come up with some targets, and then to identify some dates that work, make sure that we don't have any conflicts with those, but just to be also mindful of around budget season, when we, find ourselves here 4 nights a week on certain things, to make sure that we leave some space and time, that we don't trap ourselves a little bit on some of the time crunch, so just to be thoughtful about it. I think it would be great to talk more about it. And then as far as that particular date, Teresa, just saying, I'm available after 7:15 that night, so.
Like I was mentioning, the Clubhouse Board is very jealous of the time that they allow to outside groups. And it is a testament that we were able to get one evening on hold for us, and it is October 8th. I don't know about the future, but right now, the October 8th is the deadline, or the date that they've given us. And if this is not what you want and want to discuss it more, that's fine with me, but I can't guarantee anything in the future after that. They're very, very strict outside groups.
Michelle?
Yeah, I would go to the event, and I just think that this is an invitation, and I hope that we have invitations from other board members, that they are able to get something up. Or if you're not a board member and you have a friend who's like, hey, you know what, I've got a big group. We've gone to events where there's only a couple of people that show up, and all of us show up, no one there. So if you have the opportunity where there's going to be a room full of people that are just interested in speaking to us, but not, yelling at us or anything, and just have a nice conversation, or if we can enlighten them on the process, especially the Career Academy, which is what we've been talking about, I don't see why, and I can totally agree with Kate. We got to make sure that we follow the rules, but I hope that this is not a one-off or a one and none, but I know that Gladys is very involved in the community, her community. I would love to be invited to that as well. And I know Julie's got a big community. We could really actually get out there instead of bringing everyone to us and paying for daycare and paying for everything. Maybe we go and just drive to a different location and they're there. So I support it, and hope that we can move forward as a group. I think community relations is a great place to try to map that out further. Thank you.
For your comments, Michelle. So what we're going to do is, the superintendent gave us a recommendation, and those that wants to go to the Rivington as board members on Teresa invite, we will do that, okay? And I hope that the Community Relations Committee will sit down and map out the time, because it is important to hit those communities. And I know Eden Drive has a community center. I know that Laura Garden has a community center, and we have to hit those places that some of us might not want to go in, but you want to get the people. So, let's be honest, because everybody don't want to go certain places, So let's do our due diligence as board members and let the Community Relations Committee come up with, and they don't have the right contact to deal with those people at the different agency. You have people sitting on the board that can make the contact, that you can go out there and do exactly what you're doing at the Rivington. Okay? Real quick, the survey, pass it out to the board members so we can take it home and digest it.
So we're gonna do the 8th?
That was the
I
date.
didn't go back to the committee.
Then I can do the 15th, but I can come back.
Yes.
That's fine. That's like, you come a little bit. Thank you. So anybody who wants to come, please let me know. We'll put it on our calendar at the clubhouse. And we'll have
October
coffee.
8th, right?
October 8th, 7 o'clock. And a meet and greet. And thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
We are doing this now?
No, take it on the route.
Oh,
Could you look at this? Read it. We're gonna work on it to
So let me just,
get it out. Al, you wanna go over real quick? Just, we're gonna go over it. Can you, at the board meeting, and probably in October, send it out.
so just a quick overview, if you don't mind, okay?
thank you.
On the questions, right, there's a star. That means we're requiring them to fill out that point. The only one that's not, they're required to fill out is number 10. It's an optional for them. All, when we send it out, if we decide to send it out, it'll be anonymous. So in other words, we're not gonna know who filled it out. As a matter of fact, somebody's already filled one out and then returned, and I was trying to figure out who sent it. I can't find it. It wasn't me. But, so the point is, it's already out there. I already had one response.
What's the due date?
We have to decide.
Oh, you said you sent it out?
No. In other words, I shared it amongst people,
But not the school system.
not the school system.
Oh, I
No,
just
no,
gave you
I
a
apologize.
small-hearted time.
Misspoken. I shared with some individuals, someone has filled out the questionnaire. I was trying to figure out who was it, because it's anonymous, because I switched, you know how it works, switch the button means where you don't get any email addresses back, no names, nothing.
Should be, right.
Huh?
That's how it should be.
So,
People won't fill it out if they,
I'm sorry?
Slightly
they
think
won't
you'll
fill
see,
it out.
yeah.
So just look at this and we'll work on it at this board. Review. Kim, I need to see you before.
Okay.
I need a motion.
You know you got my motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Al. Who's second? Second by Teresa. Thank you. Good night.